Good afternoon, everyone. It's so fun to see all the familiar faces and names. I was looking at the sign-ups before we started, and it's always like, oh, Louise, Katie, Emily, and Grace. So Betty was coming back, and Deborah and Julia. So all of you mean a lot to us. Stephen, Joan, Ruanne, who else? Who did I miss? Christy, Susan. So as you can see behind us, we not only got a fancy new office, but we got a fancy new gallery, training space, meditation space. So this is one of the places and spaces we get to work now. So I'm Stacy, and I'm the founder director of The Well, and we have with us.
And I'm Bryce. I'm the program manager for mindful music at The Well.
And Bryce and I both get to work on Mindful Poetry Moments together, a program we really love. And for those of you, it looks like most of you have been here before, but in case you're new, we have a couple different versions of mindful poetry, a big exciting one coming in April that I'll tell you more about later. But one of the aspects of mindful poetry are these hour-long gatherings where we start with a meditation. Today I'll do it, and then we turn the microphone over to someone to read a poem, talk about a poem, and then give us a writing prompt. And we all take time to write and we share. So today we have a special treat. As you may know, that we asked all of you earlier in the year what poems you love and what you would want to talk about. And we had so many great responses that we have to do it again because we didn't have enough sessions for people. But both Katie Rouse and Emily Little both submitted a poem, and they were they had similar themes. So we asked, what if we did sort of a combo? So that's what we have today. We have Katie Rouse, who's been in our rooms before, and she's presenting the poem, Hope is the Thing with Feathers by Emily Dickinson. And we have Emily Little, who's presenting the poem, We Are of a Tribe by Alberto Ríos. And Katie is a writer, a marketer, and is working on a memoir in progress, or as Emily pointed out, is a memoir in progress. And Emily is a poet, a mom, a nurse, friend of mindful poetry, friend of The Well. So we'll go ahead and get started. I'm going to take us into a little bit of a meditation. So wherever you are in this world of perhaps difficulty and hope, take a second to just kind of wiggle around, look around, recall that you have a body and that you have brought this body to this moment. And just do whatever kind of wiggles or settling in that allow you to tell your body that you're preparing to go inward, and then you're preparing to connect with one another. And as you start to settle in, bring your awareness to the base of yourself. So that's where your seat hits the chair, where your feet hit the floor, maybe where your hands hit your lap. And feel yourself ground. Settle into this moment in this place. Take a few breaths here. Perhaps using the powerful exhale to keep settling, to keep grounding. Encounter your breath. Moving in your body. You don't have to move your breath moves you. And I'll borrow a line from Emily Dickinson in the poem that Katie's brought us. Hope is the thing with feathers that perches in the soul. Where in your body do you encounter the feeling of hope? Where do you encounter the feeling of the thing with feathers? We have a muscle memory, a soul memory of what that feels like. We can court it, we can play with it, we can use it to reclaim hope, to embody hope. If you have a sense of specific location within your body is where you encounter the thing with feathers, hope, perching on your soul. If it's a physical location that you could point to, go ahead and place your hand where you find hope in your body. And then begin to reemerge into this community space. Opening your eyes. Looking around to see if you might encounter other hands in other places where we encounter the thing with feathers. One final note before I turn it over to our guests is that I know for me, I can misunderstand that feeling, the thing with the feathers, as anxiety. So I like to recontextualize it, and you're helping me in this moment to remember that maybe that's just hope. Hope running too fast. So thank you, everyone. I'm going to turn it over first to Katie.
Thank you so much. What a powerful meditation moment that was, to sit with where we find this hope. And thank you for that, Stacy. All right, let's pull up this poem, Bryce, and All right. Hope is the thing with feathers by Emily Dickinson. Hope is the thing with feathers that perches in the soul and sings the tune without the words and never stops at all. And sweetest in the gale is heard, and sore must be the storm that could abash the little bird that kept so many warm. I've heard it in the chillest land and on the strangest sea, yet never in extremity it asked a crumb of me. We can take that down. We can just discuss and see each other's faces. I have loved this poem since I discovered it in this very large catalog of Emily Dickinson in high school. And I pretty much memorized it immediately because it was so striking to me that a concept such as hope could be put into words like this, such an interior notion that's really personal and intimate, that I myself, as a young, maybe starting to write poet, couldn't put into words. And so to find this poem and find this interiority made visible, right, as describing hope as something with feathers, as a songbird, as being in a gale as well as my soul, and in the chillest land as well as within me. I found that so beautiful and moving because hope to me had been a lifeline in my adolescence, where I went through a season of depression. Hope was this word that I couldn't quite name and couldn't quite describe, but it was the thing drawing me to the light in a very dark season. And so it's just so moving to have words for it, for something that is so hard to pin down and to name, but something that we all have a sense of and have. We all have hopes, we all have dreams, and we all have maybe this capital H hope that Emily speaks of, that is this force towards light, away from the darkness and the calamity and chaos and the storms that we face, both externally in our circumstances and internally. And how Emily put this into words made me want to figure out how to put these indescribable things and notions and kind of beliefs into words as well. And that was really impactful for me as a high schooler. And I think that's why I've been drawn into poetry and even into mindfulness and meditation, because it's kind of trying to find these things that are hard to describe within ourselves and like draw them out, just as we are drawn out by hope and by faith, and these big concepts that poetry helps us name and describe. And so when I thought about prompts for this poem, I wanted to kind of move from the interior to maybe a step above capital H hope into the smaller hopes that we have, and how maybe they too have imagery and songs and words that describe them. And so you don't have to remember this now, we'll put it in the chat here in a few minutes. But I just wanted to offer the prompt of, what do you hope for? What do those hopes look like? What do they sound like? And if you need a starting point, borrow from Emily. Hope is the thing with, what's your fill in the blank there? What does hope look like to you? And maybe how does that capital H hope fuel other hopes that you have? So how can you make something that's interior and personal able to speak with imagery, as Emily does, is kind of the focus there. So I will turn it over to another Emily to read a more recent poem. We started with the more historical one from the 1860s. And so Emily, take it away.
It's fun to be an Emily and have someone talking about Emily and you're like, oh, is it Emily Dickinson or is it me? I don't know. Who could it be? I think I mostly knew when you were talking about Emily Dickinson. Bryce, if you could pull up our second poem, that would be wonderful. This poem is a newer poem to me. I read it for the first time about a year ago. A friend had shared it with me. And so I'm just going to read it to start. We Are of a Tribe by Alberto Ríos. We plant seeds in the ground and dreams in the sky, hoping that someday the roots of one will meet the upstretched limbs of the other. It has not happened yet. We share the sky, all of us, the whole world. Together, we are a tribe of eyes that look upward, even as we stand on uncertain ground. The earth beneath us moves, quiet and wild, its boundaries shifting, its muscles wavering. The dream of sky is indifferent to all this, impervious to borders, fences, reservations. The sky is our common home, the place we all live. There we are in the world together. The dream of sky requires no passport. Blue will not be fenced. Blue will not be a crime. Look up. Stay a while. Let your breathing slow. Know that you always have a home here. Okay, Bryce, if you could pull the poem down, then we have eye contact as much as we can on Zoom. So I just wanted to start with just sharing a little peek into Alberto Rios's background. He grew up in a place called Nogales, Arizona, and I saw somebody in the chat immediately. I think it was the first share that someone is in Arizona. So this is what the beauty of Zoom. And someone described the place where he is from as a place where there really isn't one country or another. That's on the Mexican-United States border, and it's a much more fluid border than other places in the world, and so Alberto Rios lived there, and then he spoke Spanish at home and he spoke English at school and was forced to learn English in school. And so he describes in a lot of his work and when he gets interviewed of like this third language that he has where it's not English and it's not Spanish. It's this thing that comes out of moving between the two spaces. As for anyone who's tried to or successfully or unsuccessfully learn another language, there's you have one word and you translate it into another word. But there's sometimes so much lost and so much when you go from one language to another, and then so much gained when you learn a word that we don't really have in one language. So I think that just that background of his life is really interesting in this poem, and what he's able to create imagery wise. So one of my favorite my favorite moments in this poem is the beginning, where he talks about these seeds and the dreams, but also the roots and the limbs. And I love that the roots are actually coming from the sky and that our limbs are coming from the earth. I so often, because of trees and plants, think of this rootedness being, this groundingness being from the earth. But in this image, he totally flips us upside down and from our normal, and the rootedness, the groundedness is really coming from the sky. and yet we're planting seeds, which presumably would grow roots. So there's this rootedness both up above and below. And I think that that's a unique way of sort of looking at the world, that we're really grounding both upwards and downwards. He talks a lot about the borders, lines, fences, reservations, and I really thought it was interesting. The reservations, the use of the word reservation to me is very specific. I mean, immediately thought of the fact that in this country, we have designated areas where the native peoples of this country are forced to live. And I was like, God, what a weird word that we even use the word reservation for that. And so I looked up the definition of reservation because I feel like reservations has so many meanings. And so reservation is the act of reserving something, and that can be sort of, there's a new thing being created and we're reserving some piece of it for somebody. It's also a way of limiting conditions. So like I'm going to do something without reservation. And then there's also like, I'm going to reserve something like a table at a restaurant. I'm going to sort of choose something for myself. So I think it's really beautiful that he uses this word reservation that has such a specific connotation here in this country, but is a word that has so many different meanings that are sort of, you know, obvious and then not as obvious. So my prompt for us today is a sort of a long-winded segue, but a friend brought me a piece of writing this year from the anthropologist Angela Arian, and she talks about something called a floating cloud, and it's a Navajo term. And I'm going to read what she says about it. The Navajos have a wonderful term for a great realization or insight that is sustained. They call it a floating cloud. It's just there. It's beautiful in its shape, and we describe it and we talk about it, and then it dissipates because it hasn't been mobilized or grounded or sustained. And I really love this idea, because I feel like this is what this poem is getting at, is that we have this shared sky where these big dreams live, but we also need this grounding and planting of the seeds in order for these really big hopes to come true. And we really have to have the really big hopes. We can't give up on the really big hopes, even if they seem impossible. So my prompt for us today is thinking about what sky dream, or, to use his language, or hope do you have and that you're reaching for. And maybe it's a dream or a hope that feels a little bit impossible, or maybe feels impossible to do alone. And so what are some of the things that you already see that are planted, or the little seeds of that hope that you see in the world already around you? And so this poem might be a list of those seeds, or it might be one of those seeds, but what are the sort of real grounded things that you observe that relate to that big hope? And I think, like in Alberto Rios's case, a dream he has is that there aren't these arbitrary borders that are put up by a few people or decided by a few people, and instead we live in more of a sky space where land isn't owned by a particular person. And so to me, like an example of that in my own life would be watching, I have we're friends with a Honduran family, and they have a 9-year-old boy, and I have 2 kids who are around his age. And just watching him learn, like he lives with partially his extended Honduran family, but he also lives at this intentional Christian community here in Virginia. But then he goes to the public rural Virginia school. And so the way he's incorporating these 3 worlds, there are no borders in him, and he is like the actual growing place for a place without borders. So I'll put the prompt in the chat, so hopefully it's clear to everyone. And we'll pull up maybe both poems so people can look on them if they need to during the writing time.
Oh, you already did. Gosh, guys, there's so much to process and so much exciting things to write about. So Katie just put her prompt in the chat. Emily will do the same. We'll put up both poems as additional inspiration. And if somehow both prompts, it's like bonus points if they weave. So we'll take, I'll set the timer for our usual, you guys are going, it's going so fast. I'll do it for our 12 minutes. And I'll let you know when we're close, and then we'll come back to one another. Thanks, everyone. All right, friends, who would like to share their work?
Okay, I'm going to start by calling on Sarah Pinho. Good to see you.
You too. I love how you're always in your little closet. Your children.
Quieter here.
And just so you know, it's Pinho. It's a random Portuguese name.
Pinho. Thank you.
What is your great hope, they say? Share your great dream, they say. Me, I have no great organizing scheme for the seeds I sow wildly, indiscriminately, everywhere I go. My ADHD brain has driven me endlessly to the four corners of this earth, tasting diembing and tasting açaí na tigela and dancing dapka and smelling smog and sleeping on pure, lush rural grass. I have learned a few words in many languages and many words in a few languages. I have called myself a generalist. I have spent a cumulative hour of every day this week staring at the hummingbird on her nest through the window above my desk. I have collected 2,500 instances of the first women to do almost anything, and I've spent hours creating a church budget. I've cycled, I've camped, I've shaped colors into words on a page. I've written a long letter to my mother. Oh, wild and disparate seeds, when will you bloom into one great colorful cloud of a dream so I can see you once and for all? Thank you.
I love where you took that, Sarah. Oh, yes, 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 yes. The wild seeds, the lush rural grass. So beautiful. Thank you for sharing.
Christy, would you like to go next?
All right, I got it. Hit the wrong button. Pick a different tact. You'll be surprised. I called this framing. Which is better, 1 or 2, 3 or 4? The shape of letters coming into focus on the wall of my eye doctors. Embracing needed changes brings clarity. The shape of treasured dreams coming into focus too. Choosing to frame those changes in a way that sets them in their best light, turning insight into a tool for seeing out.
Ooh, I love that extended metaphor. That is so, so beautiful. Thank you for sharing that.
Thanks.
Well, it's hard not to choose Patricia because she has an adorable dog in her sharing her screen there. Patricia, if you'll unmute yourself.
Sorry about that. I had a landscaper, so I was trying to see if I could wave him away from my window. We have trees down everywhere right now. I'm also in Arizona, and we just had a huge storm. So let me find my poem. I put it somewhere. Hope is a locomotive, a locomotive, a locomotif. Freighted dreams, we link one to another. Hope leaves the station laden. My fears, your tears, years of injustice. Take us from here to there.
Take us from here to there. Wow. Thank you, Patricia.
Wade, would you like to go next?
Right. I would live without borders. I think staring at myself in the Zoom window, questioning angles and backgrounds. I would love without borders, my own internal landscape opening and beckoning. Could I live without borders? What is my hard-won identity once I've erased the dotted lines and thrown open the gates? Can I love those stranded parts of me left for so long, shoaled with personas past and yet straining to cross into my present? I hope for a self without borders, where all my pasts together sing, and there is nothing in the air but welcome, welcome.
Welcome. I need that framed and put right in front of me, please.
I love that. Wade, it's so nice to hear your familiar voice. And I also love that we've always had this habit. I don't know when this started in the poetry, but where people throw really favorite lines. And it's so neat when you also then connect with someone that you've thrown the same line in, and talk about an erasing of borders, that like someone's putting these words in and two people are both grasping onto them. I love that added bonus. I did see that Carl Little snuck into the chat as wanting to read. Carl Little happens to be my dad, if you couldn't figure out from the last names.
Hey, Em.
Hi.
Okay. Hope is a seed that starts small, sprouts, grows. The Kentucky wonder beans I gave to my French family years ago. It twisted around its stake, seeking the sky. Its blossoms turned to beans as if by magic, and then peas in a pod, which is also hope. The family around the table laughing at something I said in my fractured French. The three daughters like little sisters giggling. What were their hopes and dreams? To one day live in a place under a blue sky with a garden with crooked rows and wonder beans reaching into the air to their thankful fingers, as their own families gather to say grace and dream and sigh and look at the heavens where clouds form and then disappear in the moving tableau of the upper air. We all start small, we all hope to grow, measure our height on a wall, and then whistle.
And then whistle. I like that ending there. Eileen, see your hand up here.
Hi. My hope is unadorned with feathers. It is simply that my grandchildren grow up to be a member of my tribe. The seeds have been planted by their parents and to some extent me. I am optimistic, even hopeful. My tribe looks to the sky and sees Earth reflected without borders, recognizes each other by the warmth of their presence. My soul, sitting atop my solar plexus, responds with joy.
My soul sitting on top of my solar plexus. I love that. It just reminds me of the initial grounding exercise Stacy led us through, like where we feel things in our body, where we think something like our soul sits. Wow, great. Thank you for sharing, Eileen. Elena, you ready?
Hi there. So this is called The Talent of Crows. Crows have a particular gift, the power to remember. On the streets of White Plains, I learned to give a nod when passing by them. They have such a tainted past, dark with dead eyes. When they flock together are called a murder of crows. We have a long memory in common. Separating the kind and the unkind, hope is in their eyes. I carry hope in my hands, clasped in prayer, lending support and marveling at life. The arthritis in my hands reminds me that time is fleeting. The flame between my eyes grows brighter before it dims. The call of crows reminds me to look up. The sky is my haven, the place of signs and wonders, raising my hands in hope. raising my hands in hope that, like my friends, I will not fear any more scarecrows. Thank you.
I will not fear any more scarecrows. That got me. That hit me. Stephen, I'm gonna let you go next, and then we'll end with Bryce and Stacy.
Okay. Hope is the thing in seeds. Trees are full of hope, and hope they give. Hope is the thing in dreams, seeds planted in the ground to reach the sky. Hope is the thing in the sky, full of intertwined dreams, nurturing us all, keeping us alive.
Thank you, Stephen. That was lovely. The intertwining dreams. Bryce and Stacy, or both? One, the other?
Yeah, both. Okay, I'm gonna go first. Hope is the thing with leaves, whose long green branches reach up past the clouds, in roots that spread from sea to sea, who changes through seasons of ice, green, and gold, and shows its growth in layers of memories. Hope is a tree. I am a tree. Thank you.
What if the cloud lost all its data and memory and was unburdened from hosting 1 trillion photos of meals eaten, an equal number of unfinished poems, half as many petty lawsuits? What if the cloud became again a place that weeps with us, a bunny or a winged horse as viewed from a field on a cloudy, boring day? What if the clouds became free from worry about climate change, what if the clouds became free from worry about being an agent of climate change? What if the cloud held our children's future, not in data, but in dreams, not in disaster, but in spring showers? So, anybody else, any burning desires? All righty, so as always, holy moly, people, I don't know how it happened. Incredible beauty, wisdom, so quickly and so generously. We take March off because we're preparing for April, which is National Poetry Month. And then we gather together every Wednesday in April. Not from 3 to 4 this year, sorry to confuse it, but from 4 to 5. Our goal was, we heard from a lot of our student writers, our older student writers, that they couldn't get home from school or quickly enough to be able to be in this room. So we're hoping to get more young writers. But we have 2 guest curators, one of whom is our adult poet laureate in Cincinnati, and the other is the youth poet laureate in Cincinnati. And they have chosen 4 gorgeous poems that are following the theme of our narrative, our identity. We use these poems and audio resources, and we share them with all of our schools for free, and with you if you'd like that information. And we'll also have these gatherings And then we have an additional offering that I can't remember the date of, but we'll send it all to you, that where if you'd like to spend a little time working on craft early in May, you want to take your first poem and have a little help. Rimmel, who is our youth poet laureate, and Sheila McMullen, who is our Wellspring Fellow and a poet, will be hosting a craft session. But then we'll move into our publication of all of our poems that we wrote together during that month. We'll ask you for them, we'll gather them into a book, and then in the August time, we'll have our annual both hybrid and in-person book launch and poetry reading. So that's what's coming up. So I'm so grateful. We're so grateful to all of you. We're super grateful to Katie and Emily. And we'd like to turn it back over to Katie and Emily for a final reading of the poems.
Quick question, and if you can do the hand raise actually with your hand, if anyone would like to read one of the poems to close us out. Elena, which one would you like to read?
That's a tough one. I guess I'll read Emily because I love her so much.
Okay. Any others want to read Alberto Ríos? Grace's hand. Okay, so we'll start with Elena and then Grace, and Bryce, if you could pull up the poems for us, that would be great.
Hope is the Thing with Feathers by Emily Dickinson. Hope is the thing with feathers that perches in the soul and sings the tune without the words and never stops at all. And sweetest in the gale is heard, and sore must be the storm that could abash the little bird that kept so many warm. I've heard it in the chillest land and on the strangest sea, yet never in extremity it asked a crumb of me. Hope is the Thing with Feathers by Emily Dickinson.
We are of a tribe by Alberto Ríos. We plant seeds in the ground and dreams in the sky, hoping that someday the roots of one will meet the upstretched limbs of the other. It has not happened yet. We share the sky, all of us, the whole world. Together, we are a tribe of eyes that look upward, even as we stand on uncertain ground. The earth beneath us moves quiet and wild, its boundaries shifting, its muscles wavering. The dream of sky is indifferent to all this, impervious to borders, fences, reservations. The sky is our common home, the place we all live. There we are in the world together. The dream of sky requires no passport. Blue will not be fenced. Blue will not be a crime. Look up, stay a while, let your breathing slow. Know that you always have a home here. We are of a tribe by Alberto Ríos.
Oh, so beautiful. I love everything you've all written in the chat. We love all of you. We will be working hard to make, I don't know how anything could be more beautiful than today's session, but we know we'll be back in April with more beauty and more connection. So see you all soon. Thanks, Emily. Thanks, Katie. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Bryce.
Thank you. Bye.